Hello, everyone. We are live with Vonda Page here at Transcend with M. And I am so excited because I've been looking for this conversation for a very long time, getting to know Vonda's story, her background. She's an amazing champion for DNI. She's an amazing advocate, and I cannot wait to hear all those pieces of the story that are not usually out there. So welcome, Vonda. How you doing this evening?
Hey, Monica, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. I'm just ready to have an amazing conversation. That's it. That's it. I'm just ready.
All right. Well, let's hit it off. So, who's Vonda, and why is she here?
So I'm gonna just have to say, I hope you ready. But
Yes.
Vonda is a bold, brilliant, badass 53-year-old Black woman from Philadelphia who fully knows who she is and is fully 100% committed to making sure that, I use my skills, my strategies, and my tools to make the world a better place. Basically, that's it. And for me, Monica, it really, 100% boils down to alleviating anti-blackness. And so it's like way deeper than DEI. It's way,
Yeah.
it expands beyond, equity, right? And it's way
Yeah.
more integral than inclusion. It's so much more than that. So I didn't want to be in this space. Like it's so funny. I've been running away from DEI and equity work. I've been running. I never wanted to do it, but I'm in it naturally, and it's like, well, damn, you are really good at it, and people do listen, and you do know what you're doing. So, yeah, I guess you are good at it, and you're going to be doing it. So there we go.
It's chasing you down. It's chasing you down. Hey, you can run away from for what you are meant to be, honey.
You
It
cannot.
doesn't work like that. I'm sorry. Check. You're
Check.
here for a reason, and here's your reason. So let's dig into that. Why? I know you were running away. How did that came to be? Like you take it either from now backwards or from backwards to now, but I want to know the story.
Okay, so I hope you're ready. Let me just get a little sip of my water because this is it, girl.
We should be sipping other things, but that's
So
okay.
yeah, almost, but I still haven't even had any tea yet today, so I'm still on water.
Yeah.
But okay, so here it goes. So I will actually start with the fact that I am 53 years old because being 53, right, means that I was born in 1969. Okay, so that means I was what I call a kid, and use that word kid very loosely. I use kid from like toddler to like 25. Okay,
Okay.
but but for me, right, a kid, I was a little kid in the 70s. Okay, so
Mm.
my influence around who I am today is based on who I was around and how I grew up. And so, right, I was educated. I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I was educated by a ton, and I mean a ton of amazing Black women teachers. And these Black women, a lot of them were the only or first in their family to go to college, the only or first in their class, the only or first in their institution of higher education, or maybe even in high school or college, right? And so these women who educated me, not only on the whitewashed version of history that we all are getting when we come here, but on real history, on African history, on world history, on European history, on Asian history, on the Americas history, right? Native America, right? Like, so I was educated at a very, very young and early age on the truth and on facts.
Mm.
And I got to see firsthand with my own eyes how Black people, and in Philadelphia, indigenous communities and things are a little different than it is like out west. So I'll say that part in a minute. But seeing people and being also a victim of like overt racism that we had in the 70s. Like literally, I have seen people beat by cops and people sprayed with water hoses. Like I have seen that like up close and had somebody snatch me out the way. Right. Like I've literally
Yeah.
seen it, right? I literally have had tons of traumatic experiences that are related to racism specifically, but like overt things, right? So like in sixth grade, which is like we call middle school, right? Some people call it junior high school. I went to a all white school. I was bused with a bunch of kids for a so-called gifted program. Well, we were all kids that had like all these high standardized test scores, and I'll tell you how that happens, how you get high standardized test scores in America. But we had these high scores, and so they picked us out of all these schools, right, around the city and sent us to a white school. Well, we got abused at the school, just like you would think, right? A group of black people going to a school for the first time get abused. This was the 70s and early 1980. This was not 1955, 1874. This is,
2
40
years ago.
years ago,
Yeah.
43 years ago, right? And I know I don't even look 43 years old. So it wasn't that long ago, right? And it didn't happen when I was a baby. Literally, I was in sixth grade. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is the foundation of like who I am is, based on all of these experiences. And coupled with that, though, Monica, is being in environments where I am forced to conform to be as white as possible. That means I have to
Mm-hmm.
talk white, I have to dress white, I have to watch white TV, I have to know white music and sing white songs. But at home and at church, I can be as black as I want to be because I'm from a black family and I'm around black people, right? But
Right.
my family is also, right, trying to conform to whiteness and be as white as possible. And so for me, it's always been this struggle. So
Mm.
fast forward to the older I get, the more I learn. Becoming a mom, not until I was 32, which is, kind of, they call it advanced maternal age, right? It's kind of old or whatever. But becoming a mom as a grown up, as opposed to a, very young woman of 19 or something, right? The
Yeah.
experiences and the way I've matured and grown, right, have been a compilation of all of that. So in the workplace, right, and I started my professional career in 1984 at 15. I literally, my first job was working in an insurance company, right? I think I told you that when we had first talked. I worked,
Yeah.
like, my first job was an insurance company. And I don't even know what insurance is. I'm like, okay, I'm going there.
It's
15.
a job.
It's
It's
a
a
job.
job.
It's a job that was paying some money, and it was way more than whatever minimum wage was probably like $2. And so it probably was paying $4 or something. It was a lot, right? And so, I go and I do my thing. And so going from a black owned business, right, where I was allowed to like come in, learn something, implement and run with it, and then going in and out other types of organizations, watching the hierarchy, watch no matter how educated I was or experienced in different roles and things throughout my
Mm.
career, never having the opportunities and options, and which bring outcomes, right, that other people have. All of that, right, brought me to founding Radical Change in 2020 when George Floyd got killed, because
Mm.
the fact that nobody gave a shit and did anything was like, it was like the wake up that I needed to say, you know how to do what you know how to do, and you need to get out there and do it. What are you waiting for? Because literally nobody is doing what you can do, because for none of us, right? No one is doing what any of us can do, right? No one has the skills, the abilities, or anything to bring the stuff to the table. And so when I think about my childhood, the teachers I had, like I grew up in a really strong church community, right? I grew up with
Mhm.
an amazing babysitter and extended family, right? Even though my house wasn't great, everything around me was. So it made up for it. And I also was a very, very early reader and learner. And so
Mhm.
I didn't go to kindergarten. I think I told you that story. I didn't go to kindergarten. So all, and we didn't, back then, this is the 70s, we didn't have
Yeah.
nothing for kids to do. So
Yeah.
we didn't have a whole bunch of books, kid books. You didn't.
Yeah. Or phones.
Or we didn't have nothing. So you had
Yeah.
newspapers, encyclopedias, dictionaries,
Atlas.
and atlases, and you had classic novels. You had the
Yeah.
classics. But those is all books by white people. But my teachers, right, would bring in books by Baldwin and writings by Frederick Douglass and writings by, W.E.B. Du Bois and Phyllis Wheatley. And so I got exposed at a very young age to things that it's grown people that are black that I know haven't read a fifth of the stuff I've read. They haven't read a hundredth of the stuff I've read. And so all of that, right, Monica, like having the nurturing, the teaching, the education, having the exposure to the stuff, having the lived experience, especially being abused, in public spaces and being abused by systems. And I mean, I could tell you 1,000 stories about interactions with governments and I mean, almost dying 4 times in emergency room. You know what I mean? Like I can. So when I think about, like, I always just, because I'm a change leader and I'm a technology adoption strategist, and I'm a a people and talent developer and an executive advisor, I only wanted to focus on that. I want to leave the black stuff out. I want to leave it out. I want to leave it out. It's not that I don't want to acknowledge that I'm black. It's not that I don't want to acknowledge my experiences or how hard it is, because being black is so extra in the world. It's not that. It's that I feel like it's so many people out here doing great work when
Yeah.
it comes to anti-racism. I feel like it's people. I mean, I could name 100 people literally off the top of my head that are like kicking it, killing it.
Yeah.
They're so solid with the way they write, or solid with their videos, solid with the consistency, solid. Everybody's ignoring them. Everybody is ignoring all the education. So that tells you it's not about the education. It's not the
Yeah.
message, and it's not even the messenger. It is the foundation. It is the crux.
Mhm.
It is the core. It's the radical. It's the root. The root is
Mhm.
anti-blackness at this core. Our world is anti-black. That is the only way the world was able to exploit Africa. Period. They had to say this is a bunch of resources that are not human. And so going
Mm.
forward, we have to hold on to that mindset and never let black people achieve ultimate joy, ultimate inclusion, ultimate equity, because we maintain that hierarchy system of anti-blackness, because everybody else in the whole world that's not black, that's visibly not black, they can say, well, at least I'm not black. So if it goes down, and I always think of it like this, because I know this is white people's fear, because I have been around white people like nonstop for 40 years. In the back of their mind, poor white people imagine a couple of things. Number one, they imagine like slave revolts of like Haiti and stuff, right? And like, okay, if black people all get guns and they have guns and we don't know about it or whatever, and they say we're not going to take it anymore, it's plenty of black people, and it's enough people that love black people and humanity, that if we wanted to rise up and overtake the white people, we could do that. The global majority could easily have done that. We could have done it for centuries, right? But nobody wants that. Nobody wants some kind of global war with human beings. Nobody wants that, right? So we have all these initiatives and books and education and all this stuff where people are trying to have conversation that is going to further people's education and thought process, right? So that they can start to view black people as deserving of humanity. Well, the thing is, it's way deeper than that. It's way deeper than that. It's that we are able to maintain structures and systems by saying that black people are at the bottom. So I always have somebody to shit on if I'm not black. If it goes down, at least I'm not black. And that's what people have to sit with. And it really, got to me after George Floyd, Monica, because he was killed over 9.5 minutes. It wasn't a pop of an automatic weapon that I understand, by studying how people's brain works, right? That when they use automatic weapons, it's like a different part of your brain than when you're like
Mhm.
physically doing something. So the George Floyd murder, it did something for me. And I said, I gotta step in. And so for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, I've been still trying to do it from the lens of leadership, because I know it's about how people don't feel that they can lead, or people don't feel like they know what they can do, or people don't feel like they have power. So I wanted to focus on leadership, because that's my area of expertise, literally, is building leaders and helping leaders build teams and being able to, go through these steps. Da, 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 da. But I'm like, that other piece is still missing, right? And so it's like,
Mhm.
why isn't it happening? Well, it's not happening because everybody who's speaking up for black people or about black people who are not black, those people haven't done the work to unpack anti-blackness, because if so, we wouldn't need people working on disability rights and veterans rights and queer rights and all these. We wouldn't need that,
Yeah.
because if black people and indigenous people were viewed as equal to everybody else in society, then we wouldn't have all these problems. We wouldn't have a climate crisis, and we definitely wouldn't have had Roe v. Wade overturned, because that's all about creating more poor white people. And if people don't understand what Roe v. Wade is about, nobody wants black people to have babies. That's why our maternal death rate is like 4 or 5 times higher than other people, right? Because when we go to have a baby, we get no care, right? Like I told you, I almost
Mhm.
died myself 4 times in the hospital. So Roe v. Wade is not for birth control to keep black people from having kids. They could care less if black people have kids. In fact, that's why we get killed in the street, right? Because black lives are not important to people. And so I had to get to this point, and I'm like, no matter what, I can't get away from it. but
Yeah.
it's okay, because I had to sit with it, and I had to say, why am I trying to run from something that's part of who I am? Like, I've been a
Yeah.
Harriet Tubman fan since I was 4 years old. So what the hell? Obviously, she influenced my life, right? I've been a Sojourner Truth fan since I was 5 years old. Obviously, she influenced my life, right? I've been a
Yeah.
Maya Angelou reader since I was 9 or 10. Obviously, she influenced my life. And so, how can you grow up, right, on these bad ass, brilliant black women and not absorb some of it? So I'm super blessed, I guess. Not
Yeah.
I guess I'm super blessed. I'm super lucky, right, to physically been in the time and space around such women and people, because I did a survey on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago and found out hardly anybody in America, I don't know, a bunch of people answered my survey. Hardly nobody had black teachers. And I'm like, I know plenty of black teachers. Well, so where was they all at? And how come nobody had them but me? And so what
Yeah.
I'm finding is only me and those few other black women that's out here doing the same thing I'm doing had the black teachers. So
Yep.
guess what we got to do? Black teacher, Haver, alumni unite.
Worldwide. Worldwide.
Worldwide. If you had a black teacher, yo, you got to say the world, because
Yeah.
hey, and not to be, but hey, who's been in charge of the world for the last 2,000 years?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying they're not doing a good job. They're not. They're not doing a good job. We need
Yeah.
new leadership.
It is so interesting, because talking about history and upbringings, right? If you take a look at my mom, uh, my mom's family from my grandfather's side, my mom is black, nappy hair, beautiful big black women, but we're Puerto Ricans. All right, so I'm gonna, like, I'm gonna make that pause, and then
Black Puerto Rican right
yeah,
here. I already told you.
yeah,
I'm black Puerto Rican. I already told you.
and
That's
then
my nickname from
yeah,
12 to 25.
yeah. And then my dad, my grandmother, super white Spanian, beautiful eyes, like this, the hair. My grandfather, Indian, native Taino from Puerto Rico. So when you look at my family, we're a rainbow.
Mhm, mhm,
We
mhm,
have, my dad looks Irish. He has freckles, reddish hair. My cousins, some of them are white, some of them are black. We have
mhm,
green eyes, we have brown eyes, we
mhm.
have nappy hair, we have, just like whatever. We look like a rainbow. So growing up, in terms of history, we grew up with the history of Puerto Rico. We are Taino, Spanian, and African, right? We grew up with that. But we didn't learn that the rest of the world wasn't like us, right? Like, I don't remember until I got to college that there was segregation out there. I never heard of any of that happening because racism wasn't a thing where we come from, and the little island that we come from. we accept everybody from who they are and whatever they look like. Oh yeah, that's my cousin. Oh yeah, that's my uncle. I don't care if you're white, you don't care if you're black, I don't care if you look like tricolor. It doesn't really matter. So it's really interesting that the education system really goes by that
Yep.
25-mile radius where you live in. Like it's,
Yep.
I think now it's a little bit better, right? Because information is at the tip of the at the fingertips. But way before 80s, 90s, before internet became a thing, we were all very and very limited to the knowledge that we received in terms of nourishing what acceptance and what the world really looked like. I was lucky that my dad was at the military and he got to travel all around the world. So he, spent some time in Germany. He went to Haiti. He went to St. Thomas. He went to Belize. He went to North America. He went to Canada. Like, and he will bring us pictures and he will bring us things and he will show us the culture. Like, my favorite thing to do with my dad was to play and to dance tango. But I never heard tango until he brought it from Germany when he kind of took a weekend, went to Europe, and he's like, "Oh my God, I learned this thing." And every time my dad will come back from his travels at the military, I will skip school. Yeah, I will skip school to stay at home with my dad and my mom because I was an only child for a very long time until I was like 11. So that was the thing at my house. I will learn from different places, but I will never think that me moving to another place, like when I did when I was 21 and I moved here to Massachusetts, the shit that I started to see was 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 bad, and I was 21. That was the other day, like that was 17 years ago,
Mhm.
right? That was the other day. So it is really interesting that you mentioned, the core of who you are is, and it will always drift you to what you know is right to your core because of what you live. And for me, similar to you, it's been that I always want to close this gap between people because the thing that I saw when I got here was that segregation, and I never experienced that. I'm like, why can they not just like mingle? Right?
Right.
Like, why can everybody live in community just fine? Um, because that's how I grew up. Like, it was someone's birthday down the
Uh-huh.
street, and there was 400 people. And if you didn't have enough food, they will bring food, and it doesn't really matter who you are, where you are, or whatever. So I think, yes, it does impact who we are because this community that I've been trying to work on, transcend within community, it's trying to bring people together, mostly women, to close that gap that we feel. I feel that there is some jealousy, or there is like, oh no, because I don't know where you come from, our cultures are different, we are all very different. But there is so many similarities that if we just will only focus on that, we will be so much better in this world, right? And I think for you, um you mentioned, you can name 100 black people out of your head that are trying to make a difference, but that's all we can do. We can just try, right? And it doesn't take just one person, it takes all of us. So I think it's very amazing that you stopped ignoring your calling, and now that you are embracing, because you're a brilliant woman, taught by brilliant women. And I think it's really amazing how resiliency plays an important role on how we pass all these education, or if we pass all these experiences down. So your why, what is your why, and what is that vision, that goal that motivates you right now?
So I think, like, first and foremost is, I have an amazing 20-year-old daughter, named Morgan, and she is a dark skinned, young black woman. And when I have Monica had to see how this world treats my
Hmm.
child
Yeah.
in even a worse way than it treats me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
recognizing, like, oh my god, like, that's the colorism component at play. And I can't do it anymore. That's
Yeah.
number one. But the other piece is, I
Yeah.
also know that because I'm a black woman, I also know, because how our systems work in this country. Like I told you, I started reading the newspaper at 5 years old, the newspaper, the almanac, the encyclopedia, and ever
Yeah.
since, right? And I have followed politics deeply. I mean, I had to give it a break in 2015. I don't need to tell you why, but I had to turn it off because I just couldn't, right? Um, but that doesn't change understanding how our systems of government and business are intertwined, and how
Mhm.
government is in business and constructed to keep business protected. It's not
Yeah.
for any other reason. And so, as I was in corporate America and spending, I mean, out of my 38 years I've worked, I've spent 28 of that, I think, in corporate, and that rest I've spent consulting on my own, right?
Mhm.
And so that balance of going in corporate and coming out, and going in and corporate out, what I have learned and had to finally accept, not only within this work around alleviating anti-blackness and, dumping DEI for something that's meaningful and measurable, but I had to say, for me to be able to leave this life, right, and feel
Mhm.
good about, what I did, I have got to fight first and foremost for my own freedom. It is my duty, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
our duty to fight for our freedom, and it is our duty to win. And so I'm not going to allow my mistreatment, the mistreatment of my daughter, the mistreatment of you, anybody in your
Mhm.
family, I'm not going to allow it when I have the ability to do something about it. And the ability that I have something to do something about is to motivate people. The ability I have to do something about it is to mentor people. The ability that
Mhm.
I have something to do about it is to make content and programming, and to
Yeah.
do things to help people get it, because we can't do this lip service bullshit no more, because literally the planet is blowing up. The planet is on fire. Another scientist
Yeah.
killed themselves yesterday in public. Did you read
Mm.
about that?
No, no, I haven't.
These
Tell me.
scientists, this was in the UK, or maybe she was Australian. I think the scientist was Australian, but I read the story in the Guardian. Um, these climate scientists are so upset that the government isn't listening. None of the governments. It's not
Mm.
just America. It's the world. The whole world's burning
Yeah.
up. Right? We know that, right? Because and we will take no action. And the thing is, the action that's necessary to be taken is companies like Tesla and other ones who are, wasting all of this natural resources on nonsense. We need to put a stop to it, and we need to stop all this pollution. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So scientists, right? Climate scientists. This person was a doctor, right? There's been all these reports about, since COVID started in 2020 and George Floyd and everything, all these doctors and everything around the world that have been reporting more greater mental health challenges because they're being treated worse, right?
Mhm.
In America, especially in Europe, a lot of doctors are what color, black and brown, right?
Mhm.
A lot are Asian and African, right?
Yeah.
And how are we getting treated, black and brown people, since 2015? Publicly, we getting treated way worse than we were before 2015. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
So now you think about so you think about the stress of the healthcare system since COVID. You think about the increase in all the racial hatred that's being overt, as opposed to, undercover. Like when you first moved in Boston, you were but it was so it was undercover. They thought it was undercover, but it was overt to you because you hadn't seen it before, right? But they thought it was undercover, right? Overt is me when I go pick up my matcha later. If I stop at the stoplight and somebody scream out and call me the N-word just for no reason, right? Because they do that. That's where I live. They just do it, right? Because people can do whatever. And so for me, the why is like a part of number one, the future or where we are right now is not where we have to stay. Where we are is not where we have to stay. Not in anything, not in
Yeah.
our human rights, not in the climate. We could stop the climate from burning hotter. We could cool it
Mm-hmm.
down. We can't we can't take it back because we done burnt it
Yeah.
up. But
Yeah.
we could almost freeze it where it is and go to
Yes.
zero and but we're not taking the moves to do it, right? But what I want to do through leadership, but through helping people understand why we're not doing these things. So as a leader, right, people are not willing to make the hard choices. People are not willing to dig deep and dig down and say, okay, what is it that I'm not doing, or how do I examine? That's another part, and that's what I really want to work on, because that's like critical thinking, right? That's like bell hooks, and that's like digging into who you are, and do you want to like transcend with them, right? Do you want to transcend? Do you want to transform?
Yeah.
Because people should want to transcend. They should want to transform, because literally we're growing and changing even if we don't want to. Otherwise you dead. And even when you die, you still change and your body decomposes, right? Now I don't know. I haven't never studied after cremation. Do the ashes change it over years? I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know, but we always change, right? Because everything changes
Mhm.
around us and change
Yeah.
is happening. And so to help people be able to understand now why you are struggling to change, why you are struggling to transform, why you're struggling to get goals that you have had on your vision board for such and such a time. And if you're talking about you're a professional
Mhm.
person, right? Whether you're, let's say, a DEI practitioner, let's say you have a manager job at your company or any kind of role where you're like, how come things aren't changing for the better,
Yeah.
right? You got to first be able to look inside, but you can't do that if you're scared to look at what's in there.
Yeah.
If
You
you're
know,
scared to
it's
look at it, you don't want to look at it. And a lot of white people, they don't want to look at what's inside, not if they are of European descent.
it is very interesting to me how quickly we default to our old habits and behavior, right? Like taking it back a minute to talking about, the global warming and everything that's happening in the world, you know, regardless of what happened with COVID on, 2020, there was one good thing about it, and it's that, well, a couple good things about it, one of them being our planet was healing, actually. And then, people was actually investing more on themselves, right? Those two things. Now, we've been out, not out of the pandemic, but we've been kind of like normalized for a couple months now, and it's so mind blowing to see. And I'm saying this, and I feel like a hypocrite too, because falling back into old behaviors and falling back into what and felt comfortable, it completely erased the work that I did for an entire year and a half. And I'm back.
Because
I'm back. I'm back to the same I was before the pandemic.
because that's how our brains work, number one,
Yeah.
right? Our brains work on comfort, and
Yeah.
because that was how, right, our ancestors survived, right, on
Yeah.
right in the moment, and then getting right. So that's number one. But number two is our conditioning, Monica. It's the
Yeah.
way the structures are set up. It's every system. So let's take it to climate and how the
Right.
world was healing that same
Right.
summer. So I live in Oregon, right? That same
Yeah.
summer that George Floyd was killed for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, there were protesters protesting in downtown Oregon every day. They were saying, I can't breathe for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. They laid on the ground, hands behind their back, okay, prone on the ground. They did this for weeks and weeks. Do you know that Portland police and other law enforcement they gassed Portland so bad that we in our city, and I live 20 miles from where this happened, okay? Is so much pollution from that summer of them gassing people that it's a permanent impact on the environment in Portland,
Yeah.
Oregon that will never change because they gassed them people for protesting. And I say that to say that the government gassed citizens because what the thing is, government is set up to protect business, okay? By people protesting, businesses don't like it because people weren't going to work because they were blocking traffic, so they say shut it down. And so we are never going to be able to protest
Yeah.
in a way that's going to be happy for our oppressor. They never going to like it. And so I had
Yeah.
to say to myself, right, that the transformation and the finally saying, okay, well, you can't keep running away from it is that, that nobody is coming. Nobody is coming to save us. Nobody's coming for me and my daughter. I'm coming for us. I'm coming. And I'm coming
Yeah.
for anybody else's whoever has a bringing another human being into the world. Before I leave, I'm going to make the world better with every tool I have. And I use my tools, my talent, my time, my techniques, right, to help other people to be able to level up. Because, I mean, the planet is on fire. What the heck?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you think like I have a 10-year-old. So where is she going to be like 40 years from now? I might not be alive to see the cluster f that this is going to become, right? Like
Right.
it is just sad that I know in 40 years she might not be able to enjoy that beach that we really love so much, or that she
Without
won't be
wearing a
able.
gas mask,
Yeah.
without wearing a gas mask and
Yeah.
lugging an oxygen tank because
Yeah.
the air is so disgusting that
Yeah.
you can't breathe without support. That's
Right.
what is going to that's where it's not 40 years, it's 28 years. Now it's
Yeah.
27 years away. It's
Yeah.
27 years away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
So
we got to do stuff.
we have to. So Bonda, how can we do the homework, I guess, is my question. What homework do we have? Like, how can we contribute?
I love that question. First and foremost, the homework is, you know, you have to take a look inside and you have to start foundationally. I call it BIC, but you have to foundationally start with your beliefs. What do you believe? And how did you come to those beliefs? And are those beliefs that you really have deep down, are they in alignment, right, with how you want to live every day? So it's about the inner work. And first, I think it's in examining your own beliefs, right? Secondly, the I, right? I think it is examining the impact of your beliefs, right,
Mhm.
on the world. So let's say you're a boss and you have a small team of 4 people, and let's say you believe that people who have the ability to give birth should not have their own rights and freedoms. Let's say you believe that, okay? That's fine. But how does those beliefs show up in how you treat people? Right? Do your beliefs show up in a way that's antithetical to how you really believe you're aligning yourself as a leader? So you need to examine, right, the impact of your beliefs. And thirdly, right, is understanding that your beliefs and the impact of your beliefs is based on your character. And so what do you want your
Mhm.
character to look like, right? Do you want to really be a person of integrity and a person who, I'm from Philly, show and prove, put your money where your mouth is, show up, shut up or put up, right? So are you a person that is walking, right, the talk, or you just talking the nonsense? And so you have to start, the work is starts with yourself, because it all, because how we act, how we treat each other, how we show up, everything we do is based on what we believe and how we feel about ourselves. So it's so good. You're an amazing interviewer. I meant to tell you that when I listened to your thing, because you take it back to the beginning. Because, right, so to circle back to the beginning, right, the why and who is Vonda and why I'm here, and that whole piece, right, it goes back to understanding that I, right, get the opportunity to show up, right, for my daughter, right, for your child, right, for
Mm.
everybody's child, because I'm not going to die and people not know that I was standing up doing something for good. I'm not going to
Yeah.
die, and it's not going to be books that somebody is reading 20 years from now, because they live in somewhere that is so damn hot that the internet don't stay on for more than 5 minutes, right? Because those are some of the challenges that we're going to be facing if we don't fix
Yeah.
these issues, right? And so people, first and foremost, they have to know who they are and know that no matter what you believe now or in the past, no matter the impact on those beliefs that you had before, right? You can, right, transform your character. You can show up and decide, right, who you're going to be, because I believe that we all have a story, and
Yep.
that story is one that we get to choose, and we get
Right.
to live it out how we want to. So, I spent the first 30-ish plus years, right, being a leadership consultant and a leadership advisor, focusing on leaders and trying to help them do their jobs better. Well, okay, I need to transform into what's really
Yep.
necessary right now to meet the moment, like what I talk about, meeting the moment. And so that involves me
Yep.
telling the world and helping the world alleviate anti-blackness, but you have to do it with understanding who you are. That's your
Mhm.
beliefs. Understand the impact of your beliefs,
Yep.
on the world, and then that's based on what your character is. So that's
I
it.
love that. I love that. It's the first time I hear about Bic.
All
I
right. Well,
love it.
I think I invented it. So
I yeah. Pat,
it's in one of
pat,
my workbooks.
patent that shit.
I got it on the trademark list, but then they keep on saying to me, how many, these all are not trademarks. Some of these are
Yeah.
copyright. So I gotta
Yeah.
go back and do some more work on it. But it's on the
Yeah.
list. It's on the list.
Gotta get the application going. Takes like
Right.
3 years.
Right. I know. Oh, and I have too many in the queue and half of them are incomplete. It's a mess.
I love it. Well, Vonda, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story, your mind, your being, because it is really important that we come truthful and we show up just the way we are and what we believe on. So I really appreciate you taking the time this evening, sharing your thoughts, sharing your beliefs. And I think we can learn a lesson or two from all this conversation. And I'm definitely going to do an exercise about Beck, because sometimes we kind of lose track of what that is and what does it mean to us, because we get too busy. So I think anyone listening and viewing us today, make sure that do your homework and make sure that you are showing up not just for yourself but for others authentically. So thank you so much, and really, really, really look forward to do other collaborations with you as well, as we know so many people in common, and I am pretty sure not too long from now our path will cross again, doing something either for ensure equality or somewhere in between. So thank you and have an amazing evening.
Thank you, Monica. Bye, everybody. I appreciate it.